Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about emojis, which I don't know why we have to talk about this. This is apparently a massive societal issue that needs to be taken care of ASAP. So I don't know if you guys actually care about this, but in recent years they've been adding different skin tones and colors to the emojis, especially on like the iPhone. I don't know if they've been doing this on Android or anything like that, but I personally have an iPhone, so you may or may not have noticed that they've been adding skin tones and whatnot. So, you know, you got like the palest of skin all the way to the darkest of skin, then you've got like that Simpsons yellow skin that goes on some of them too, which is supposed to promote racial diversity and stuff and allow people to use emojis that they feel more personally connected to or whatnot. Personally, I've never really felt the need to be connected to the skin tone of an emoji. To me, they're just kind of like images that you can use alongside text to convey a message. It doesn't, I don't know, I don't feel the need to be represented by an emoji, but I guess I don't really see the harm in feeling this need. But apparently now it's racist if you use one that doesn't fit your skin tone, I guess is the argument being made here. I don't know, I haven't really read through this. That's kind of like the point that I'm kind of getting off the beginning here of just looking at this and kind of seeing what's going on. We're about to break this all down. This actually came from NPR, right? So this is what's supposed to be a very credible source, but apparently the skin tone of emojis is what NPR has to focus on right now. You know, the world's on the brink of like World War III. Russia could invade Ukraine literally any day and start a massive conflict. China could invade over the South China Sea right into Taiwan. Next thing you know, the entire world's at war, right? But apparently what NPR is deciding to focus on in the midst of so much global history, so many important things going on, is the skin color of emojis and whether or not it makes you a piece of shit to not use the one directly attached to you. So Heath Rosella identifies as 3/4 white and 1/4 Filipino. When texting, he chooses a yellow emoji instead of a skin tone option because he feels it doesn't represent any specific ethnicity or color. He doesn't want people to view his text in a particular way. He wants to go with what he sees as the neutral option and focus on the message. Quote, I present as a very pale, very light-skinned, and if I use the white emoji, I feel like I'm betraying the part of myself that's Filipino. Rosella of Littleton, Massachusetts said, but if I use a darker color emoji, which maybe more closely matches what I see when I look at my family, it's not what the world sees, and people tend to judge that. Okay, so personally here, I'm looking at myself, I think I identify as white, I guess. So I don't really understand who or why anyone would judge that, you know what I mean? Like, I personally don't really care what color emoji anyone uses. I don't see the point. What the fuck is the point in this whole thing, right? It's literally just a picture. That's all it is, okay? I feel like it doesn't need to necessarily represent the exact, like, look, I guess, of the person sending the message, because it's literally just a fucking emoji, okay? It's a picture. You should not feel pressured into using the one that identifies best with your skin color or whatever, right? They're fucking emojis, they're pictures. What, so someone who's black is supposed to just pretend that the paler options on the screen or whatever just don't exist? They're not allowed to use them? You know, a white person can't use the dark-skinned ones, right? Because, you know, that's racist? What? They're fucking pictures, okay? It doesn't matter whatsoever. Like, please explain to me, you know, what happens if someone uses the wrong skin-colored emoji? Is America gonna go back to segregation? Are we gonna have different fucking water fountains all over again? Are we gonna go back to Jim Crow laws? Like, I have a pretty good feeling that it has literally zero impact on society, literally zero impact on the actual message being sent in a text, literally doesn't affect anybody. It has no effect on anything, right? The only thing it affects is like what color some pixels on a screen fucking display at a certain point, right? You should not feel like you're betraying the part of yourself that's Filipino because you're using a white skin colored emoji. It seems to me that being a quarter Filipino is very important to Heath here, right? Like, it's part of his personal identity and it means a lot to him. Personally, I would not judge him or say that he's betraying the part of himself that is Filipino for using any emoji regardless of color. I feel like there's a lot larger circumstances out there that kind of indicate whether or not you've betrayed your racial makeup and identity. In 2015, 5 skin tone options became available for hand gesture emojis in addition to the default Simpsons-like yellow. Choosing one can be a simple texting shortcut for some, but for others it opens a complex conversation about race and identity. I use the brown one that matches me, says Sarai Cole, an opera singer in Germany. I have some friends who use the brown ones too, but they are not brown themselves. This confuses me. Cole is originally from California and identifies as black and an American descendant of slavery. She said that while she was not offended when a non-brown friend used a dark emoji, she would like to understand why. Quote, I think it would be nice if it is their default, but if it's just they're using it with me or other brown people, I would want to look into that deeper and know why they're doing that, she said. Jennifer Epperson from Houston identifies as black and said she changed her approach depending on who she was talking to. I use the default emoji, the yellow-toned one for professional settings, and then I use the dark brown emoji for friends and family, she said. I just don't have the emotional capacity to unpack race relations in the professional setting. Okay, so apparently Sarai is a little confused on why her non-brown friends would use a darker-skinned emoji. I don't really understand the reason to be confused about this. If I could guess, and I think this is probably the most logical explanation, these people are probably just not trying to be viewed as racist, and they're probably just trying to make you more comfortable in the conversation by using this emoji. Now, I understand this can misfire and have the unintended consequences of maybe making you feel even more uncomfortable because, I don't know, it feels like they're kind of focusing in on your race or focusing in on this detail about you, but I feel like they're not doing it in a way that they want to offend you, you know what I mean? I don't feel like these people are doing this in a manner to like point out that like, you know, you're not white or whatever. I feel like that they're just trying to be conscious of the fact that you have a different ethnic makeup than they do, and they're just trying to be polite, you know? I feel like that's really the best and most rational and logical explanation behind it. Personally, I also just don't really care about the skin tone of the emojis. Like, I don't really use the darker skinned ones ever. I very rarely even use ones that aren't like the default yellow one, because personally I don't feel the need to represent my skin tone and who like my racial makeup is in fucking texts, right? If I'm using an emoji where like it has the ability to change the skin tone or whatever, usually I just use the like default yellow one because I don't really care, right? And in the times where I do use the ones that have like the actual skin tones and everything, I don't really do it in a way where I'm like actually considering anything when it comes to race. It's just the one that's like, I guess, default or the last used one or whatever it may be, right? So a 2018 study published by the University of Edinburgh looked at the use of different skin-toned emojis, what it referred to as modified emojis, on Twitter to find out if the modifiers contributed to self-representation. Alexander Robertson, an emoji researcher at Google and PhD candidate involved in the study, said the emoji modifiers were used widely, but it was people with darker skin who used them in higher proportions and more often. After another look at Twitter data, Andrew McGill, the writer for The Atlantic, found that some white people may stick with the yellow emoji because they don't want to assert their privilege by adding a light-skinned emoji to a text or to take advantage of something that was created to represent diversity. Perhaps like Heath Rosella, they simply don't want to think about how their message could be interpreted. But Zara Rahman, a researcher and writer in Berlin, argues that skin tone emojis make white people confront their race as people of color often have to do. For example, she shared Sarai Cole's confusion when someone who is white uses a brown emoji, so she asked some friends about it. Quote, one friend who is white told me it was because he felt that white people were overrepresented in the space that he was using the emoji, so he wanted to kind of try and even the playing field, Rahman said. For me, it does kind of signal a lack of awareness of your white privilege in many ways. Okay, I think this is fucking ridiculous. So this guy was in the wrong, I guess, because he was trying to be more respectful to people around him. So he felt like, I guess, the white emoji or whatever was overrepresented in the space around him. So he was trying to even the playing field. He was trying to create more diversity in the emojis. But apparently that signals a lack of awareness of your white privilege. Apparently, you know, the white privilege in this situation is that, you know, the white emojis were overrepresented, and apparently it's a lack of awareness of your white privilege to realize that I guess it's being overused, which is fucking stupid, but and try to like actually make an effort and make a change to make people of color more comfortable around you. Apparently that's just not understanding your white privilege. Seems kind of like an oxymoron when you put it that way to me personally, but I don't think it has anything to do with taking advantage of something that was created to represent diversity. I just feel like most people really don't give a fuck, and the people who do care about the skin color of emojis honestly just care too much. Like, it's literally just fucking emojis. You know, if you want to feel represented by the picture on the screen that you use to communicate a message, go ahead, I guess. But why why are we having this societal argument about it? Because most people choose not to, and the reason that most people choose not to is because it literally has basically no fucking effect on society whatsoever. White privilege is widely considered to be like an actual issue, an actual like subject of discussion, and I feel like there's much better ways that people can like actually quote unquote realize their white privilege other than like determining what emojis they should and shouldn't be fucking using. Like there's actual issues at hand and people are taking their time up debating fucking emojis. No one really seems to care other than like a very small portion of people. And they say that, you know, white people don't want to assert their privilege and that's why they use the yellow emoji. No, I would say mostly because it's literally the fucking default emoji. The default emojis are all like the yellow generic one, right? Just like by rule of common sense, you can assume that more people are going to use the default option because they don't have to go out of their way to change it. Ramon, who in 2018 wrote that article for the Daily Dot, quote, "The problem with emoji skin tones that no one talks about," also challenges the view that the yellow emoji, similar to the characters from The Simpsons, is neutral because on that show, quote, "there were yellow people, and then there were brown people, and then there were black people." She said there was a default in society to associate whiteness with being raceless, and the emojis gave white people an option to make their race explicit. I completely hear that some people are just exhausted from having to do that. Many people of color have to do that every day, and they're confronted with race every day, Ramon said, but for many white people, they've been able to ignore it, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, their whole lives. Ramon admits there's no specific answer to all the questions about emoji usage, but that it was an opportunity to think about how people want to represent their identities. Quote, "I think it's more one of those places where we just have to think about who we are and how we want to represent our identity," she said, and maybe it does change depending on the season, depending on the context. So it's weird that in the same paragraph here, Ramon will argue for like, we just have to think about who we are and how we want to represent our identities, but then complains that white people have the option to use a white emoji because the emojis give white people an option to make their race explicit when society has associated whiteness with being raceless. Well, most white people are widely regarded as being Caucasian, which is a race, so I don't know who's saying this, who's saying white people aren't a race or, you know, anything like that, because it's just not fucking true. It's literally just scientifically not true. White people are their own race for the most part, and they also, I should say, we also deserve to have an option to represent ourselves. If it's good for, you know, other people of color and everything to be able to represent themselves, represent their ethnic backgrounds, represent the, you know, cultures and heritages that they've come up with, why is it not okay for white people to do the same? I know that there's like this societal thing, oh, white people don't have culture. White people don't have culture. It's just not fucking true. There's literally dozens of cultures throughout Europe and other places in the world that white people have created for over hundreds of years, and that white people have used to represent themselves for hundreds of years. So the idea that like white people are raceless or shouldn't have the right to represent themselves in the argument of diversity is fucking stupid. And I think it's also personally counterintuitive. And I don't know about this. They say for many white people they've been able to ignore it, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, their whole lives. I don't think that that's widely true. I think for maybe a lot of white people, sure, they haven't had to consider their race as much as like a lot of people of color, especially like here in the United States where like race is still like a very hot button topic. Sure, maybe it hasn't been something that they've had to consider as much, but I can say for the last few years, every single day of my life, when I get online, I see an article about how white people this, white people that, white, black, white, black. Like, race has become such a massive focal point in our society that I just feel like that's not true. I feel like a lot of white people every single day have been confronted with their race, and I feel like in a lot of ways, white people who aren't really doing anything wrong have been associated with people who are doing something wrong and have been told that because they're white or whatever, that they're causing fucking problems that they may or may not even be contributing to in the first place. So I don't really know about that, man. I feel like that this is being made into more of an issue than it really is. I feel like that people are just finding something to fucking complain about at this point. I don't see at all how this is an issue to anyone whatsoever. It's literally just a fucking emoji. I mean, if you choose to represent yourself or like your ethnic diversity or background or whatever with it, that's perfectly fine. I don't see a problem with it, but it just seems like a very weird thing for people to be hyper-focused on when there's actual issues in society that could be getting focused on, actually could be fucking getting maybe tackled or solved. But instead, we're sitting here debating about the fucking racial makeup of emojis on an iPhone, okay? So, I don't know, man. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch. at sub to Optimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about emojis and signing out.